Hello, and welcome to Michell Consulting Group's webinar series for our Michell University. Today we're going to be working with Infor FACTS, and we're going to be talking about contract pricing. For purposes of the demonstration today, we're going to be using FACTS 7.7 for our demo, and we're going to discuss contract pricing. The contract pricing subsystem is an optional feature of the FACTS system. The contract pricing allows you to enter, maintain, list, and review existing contract prices. The programs that are available in the subsystems are the contract entry, which is available here. So we're going to go into sales order and contract pricing. We're going to discuss the contract entry. This allows us to set up the contract for the special pricing. We can then do a contract list and view the information. We can look at expired contracts to remove them, and we can also talk about the contract hierarchy. So let's start first with the contract hierarchy. Okay, this is a setup for the user, and what this allows us to do is set the stage for how the contract pricing is going to work. As you're aware, in the FACTS software, we can set different pricing levels. We can have a standard price or a list price, and we can have up to 6 levels below that. So we can set a general price for an item. We can have a retail or a list price. We can say a distributor price, which is maybe 5% less, a wholesale price, which is 7% less, and so on. So we can set that standard, and that becomes the standard price for the items. But there are times when dealing with customers, we want to give that customer its unique or contract pricing, otherwise known as special pricing. Here what we can do is we can set up the pricing very general, so we can, every customer who buys any item, we can give them 10% off, or we can do it in different scopes. And then here in the hierarchy is where we actually set the levels. You can see here, you can opt to select the lowest price. So based on all the criteria, it'll actually choose the lowest price. You can look at the customer scope. So again, here you can say, well, if it's an individual customer, and this you'll see within the demonstration. We can also do the customer price list, and we can do all customers. As far as the items are concerned, we can do the same thing. We can do all items, so we're starting from a very broad, so we can give a percentage to a customer on all items. We can do all items that relate to a vendor or the vendor for that item. We can do all items within a price class and an individual item. So we can go from a very broad to a very detailed. And again, you see that's true with the customer. We can do all customers, the customer price class, and an individual customer. And this is up on the user, and this is the priority I'm going to go into. Typically, this is just left as default. Our clients really don't reset this, but you can reset if you want. But this is the typical way of doing it. You always have the option of just here selecting the lowest price, and I'll select the lowest price. That's important sometimes because when people do set up the special pricing, I may have a customer who's on price level 3, and price level 3 is 20% off the list price. But then what I do is I give him special pricing, and I meant to give him an additional 5% off. He's already getting 20% off. I meant to give him an additional 5% off, but I actually give him 5% off the list price. So instead of him getting the 20% off, now I actually increased it by 15%. So if you want to make sure and take the guesswork out of it, and you just say, I want to make sure that I give my customer, if I set this up, the lowest price he can get, we can just go ahead and select this here. Okay, so let's do a couple of things. Let's look at the contract entry, and I'm going to start off with a simple one, and we're going to show you how that works. So I'm just going to go here, and I'm going to search, and I have this one here called New Contract. Okay, and we can see we have a new contract, and it's this one is pretty much set up. If you look here at the customer, I have it set for one customer, so I have this customer C100. And then what I do is I can go here, and I can choose an item, and I can go here in my items and look, and I have one item. So very simple. I have this customer, C100, if he buys this item, I100. And because it's a one-to-one relationship, let's just close that. I want to get out of here. Let's just add that again. I made a change on the before, so we're just going to go ahead and set this up. Need to add the unit of measure. Because I have that set as a fixed price. So what I did is I made a change on this. So what I have here now is very simple. I just have a simple contract where if this customer buys that item, I just fixed it right here for $150. So you can see when we go in, let's go to orders, and let's do order entry. So we're going to go down, and we're going to select our item. We're going to order one. So you can see what's happening. We're getting the $150, even though this was the price. So you can see here by looking at this that this customer has a contract price of this item of $150. These are the levels, and these are the breaks. So we'll stick with this so we can see how we can actually change this. So what I did is I did something very simple. I just said that I'm going to give him a fixed price of $150. If I'm dealing with one item, I could do that. I can actually go in item by item and set the fixed pricing. But if I want to do a range of items on an item group, what I can do is I can just go ahead and use my price levels you see here, as well as my quantity breaks. So I can take price levels and give a percentage up or down, and it's the same with the quantity breaks. Let's just back out of this order. And let's go back to contract pricing. So again, let's look at some of the things that we can do here with the contracts. As you know, we can go here and we can create a new one. We can give it a contract number or let the system just decide on a number. We can give it a description. And it's nice to use a description that relates to the pricing, like maybe you want to do it for a customer and item, so it's just easier when you're searching to find the information. We have an effective date, and for purpose of the demo, my demo is just on January 2nd, 2012, and we can create an expiration date. If we leave this blank, this will always be the special price, or we can actually put an expiration date. The advantage of the effective date, it allows us to set this ahead of time. Maybe I'm going to have a big sale next month, or I want to get rid of some inventory. So it allows me to create the pricing, and this can actually start at the beginning of the month or whenever I want. It's also good on the expiration date. Maybe it's a new customer, and I've negotiated with that customer for the first 6 months. I'm going to give them a special deal for the first 6 months. So what I can do is I can set this up, let it run for the 6 months, and then when we pass the expiration date, I don't need to do anything. The fax is going to roll back into the standard price. Here we have our two levels that we discussed. We can do it based on price levels or quantity breaks. We're going to choose the price levels. We have an option here for rounding. This is optional, does not have to be used, but we can round to the nearest 10 cents or the nearest dollar. Some people like that. They just want to keep the pricing clean. But again, it's not required. You can set a priority on the contract. I can have several contracts for this customer, or maybe I have several contracts and a customer or an item may overlap because I'm doing this based on a preferred vendor, or I'm doing it based on a customer group, or so on. So I can have two that interact. What I can do is I can set this to be the priority contract. That way, this one will override the other contract, so I don't have a conflict when I actually set it up. Here you get, if you want to select, you can just do it for all customers. If by doing this, you'll notice the customer is grayed out down here at the bottom. So we can say all customers and all items. Or we can do a specific customer and all items. Again, we have that option of doing it across the board. We can talk about the warehouse shipments. Okay, we can select the shipping warehouse. We can do all, none, or we can do a select. And we can select certain warehouses for shipping. So you'll see that down here. So you can leave that as all. We can do direct ships. And we can do on a direct ship all of them, none of them, or we can select specific direct ships if we wish. We can also decide if we want to exclude. For example, we have our stock items. This is standard in facts. We have our stock items. These are items that we keep in inventory, and we are actually keeping track of the inventory. We have non-stocked items, items we have but we don't carry. We also have uninventoried item and catalog items. So I may want to do special pricing for just stocked items. I may want to exclude stocked items. I may want to exclude the catalog items, and so on. I have that option of doing it here. Here I can actually chain contracts. So we talked about before, if we do have multiple contracts, we can actually do kind of a hierarchy, and here we can chain them together. So one goes after another one. Again, this is not really used that much, but the option is available. So here, because we chose our price levels, we can see our standard price levels. So what we can do is we can say, okay, let's let's edit this line. So we can look at the basis. We can do, again, a fixed on this one. We can do it based on a list or based on a number of things. We can use a multiplier. So in this case, we want to go 10% above. We put 1.1. Okay, if we want to do 5% below, we would put 0.95. In this case, we'd probably be putting this because we want to bring it less. We can set a commission expense. If we leave this blank, what it'll do is the commission expense that's set up for the salesperson in the commission will calculate on the standard price or the standard price level. So if this item was $100 and you do not put a commission percentage, he's going to get it off the 100. You can also put a percentage here to bring the price down and so on. So again, you can see that multiplier. We can, again, just do that for this level. So we can do the same thing. We want to take this from, let's say, the standard price, and we did 95, so let's do 0.9. So again, we're doing that here. We can now select, since we did not select all customers and items, now we can say, okay, what customers do we want? So we can go here, and we can do our customers. We're going to add, and again, like we saw before, we can do a specific customer or a customer price class. So we can go here, and we can say retail customers. All right, so we can set that up, and we can go to items. Again, we can do all items here. We can do items from a certain vendor, items from a certain class, and so on. So we're going to add this, and we're going to do a specific item class, and we're going to say warehouse equipment. All units of measure. Again, we can break it down by units of measure if we wish. And we click None. So we can continue this on. You can see that this is not approved. So even though I'm actually do this and I click Done, okay, I did not approve that, which means it's not really active yet. So if I search, I can see this demo contract price here. Approved is no. And this one we have the yes. So if we want to do that, let's call it back up. And here, we would just approve it. Now again, everything that I'm showing you in this is based on the security code set up. In this case, for purposes of the demo, I just have full access on everything, but we can control this, or you can control the information you want to see here. So for example, you can give only certain people the access to approve this. And when I approve it, it's just going to show me when it's being approved. And then you'll see now we don't get the not approved. If we click Done and do a search, you can see that they are here. And they're set to never expire. Again, let's call it up. Again, we're doing it here. You can see the price levels. Again, we can click and see that it was approved, so it's okay. We can look, so we're looking at retail customers here. And if we look at our items, we're looking at warehouse. So now we've set that up. Again, that will work now when we actually do our sales. We can set that up. We have our contract listing that we can go in, and we can go here and look at the listing. And again, we have a lot of options here because we can look again at the contract status. We can look at expired, future, and current. Current will be contracts that have already started. Again, we're using January 2nd, 2012 as our date. So a contract that started before today would be considered current. I may have created some future contracts that start next month, so they won't show if I select current. I can choose my expired contract, or I can choose all of them. So again, I have all this information here. Let's just go here and set my default. I'm just going to go ahead and use my notepad. Again, standard facts, you can see I'm just going through. And you can see what we have here. So again, we have for this one, so here we have all customers that are purchasing just this one item, I-32. You can see here that we're doing a fixed price for this one. You can see here that this one here, we have a customer price class retail, and we have all items. Again, we have some fixed here, and so on. Again, we just take a look at these, and we can see those as we go across. The expired contract removal. This is a nice feature also, because what you may want to do is, once the contracts are expired, you can actually go in here and you can put a date and you can remove them. You can also select a range of contracts. So it's a nice feature there if you want to clear them out. So let's see then, let's actually look at an order, and let's do an order entry. And to make it easy, we're going to select the one that was all customers and a particular item. So if we take this, should work. So that was all customers, and I believe the item was I-134. Okay. And you can see here that it's doing the $12.95, and you can see it's picking up the levels here based on that information. So it's doing a percentage off. So we can see that there. If we choose our customer that we set up, let's go back here. And I believe it was a retail, so let's see if we can find one. We don't have it in the system here. So let's grab this one here. So we did our retail customer. And let's go to our class. And that was a warehouse item. Let's see if this will work. So we're going to go here. We're going to order one. And we should see that, yes, we do have our contract price here. So we have this contract price set up. There's no price levels on this, but we actually did it based on this information here. So we took a percentage off of this one here. I believe it was 95, so it took 5% off, so we have the information here. Let's just finish this order. Done. What I'm showing you here today, we're talking about the contract pricing. We will actually, this webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on our website. So you can go to www.michellgroup.com and view this as well as other webinars in our webinar series. But what we're showing today is the contract pricing is doing it from the sales side. There's also, from the vendor side, if we go into the purchasing system, which we're not going to get into this today, but we have that same principle called cost contracts. Same principle here, you can define that. So if you have an item that you purchase from a couple of vendors and maybe you have a relationship with one vendor, you can actually set the costing of what you pay for the item from that vendor. And that'll be in, we'll do that in another webinar series, so we'll be able to see that. So let's go back here to sales, to the cost contract. There's also some contract maintenance we can do here on this one. It's on the top of the list. I kind of show this afterwards because this allows you to copy contracts. You can open, insert, so you can see like we have this contract from quotes here that we did. We can use this and we can do some stuff where we can go here and we can chain them this way. We can break a chain if we set up a chain. We can do a quick add. So if we want to just kind of quick add here, we can do the same thing. So it just allows us to do some maintenance on existing contracts. We can copy from one to another. So let's say we create a very detailed or very elaborate contract for a customer group, and then we want to use that same principle and those same things for somebody else. Instead of having to restart the whole thing again, we can just copy, and you can see you have some options. So again, you can search the different contract numbers. So we can see here, we can select, say, that demo new. And then we can go here and select, again, copy the pricing information, copy the contract scopes, and so on. We can give it a new name. This allows us to go in and do that. Most of our clients don't really use the maintenance. They kind of do it here because I do have the same option. If I go here, I have this option to copy here. So it's normally done in here. The other one, it can be done. But we tend to do it through here. So let's say I'm going to create a new contract. I'm just going to go here and I'm going to copy, let's pick one here, like this one here. This one has a ship to. And this is going to be and again, we're just going to click OK. And you can see how it created 14. So it just brought the information over. That's the one I did fixed. Again, so now I have my information as a starting point. If I want, I can do this base, and then I can make my edits here. Okay, or again, I can just go here and just create the next available one this way. So we have that option of going through. So let's step back a little bit and recap what we've done. We're talking about in FACTS a way of creating what's known as contract pricing. A lot of people refer to it as special pricing. What we're doing is we're defining our price levels. So if we see here in our standard FACTS, let's just call up an item. We know that we can actually go here and create pricing. Here. We know from our standard FACTS that we can go here. So for in this example, you can see we can actually have a cost, a multiplier, so you can see that you can see our different amounts. We can have a standard, we're doing a level, and so on. And we have also our breaks. So this becomes the standard price. And as we know from using FACTS is that we can set our customers to different levels. So if I have a customer that's on level 2, he buys his item, he's going to get $216. If I have a customer on level 3 and buys his item, he's going to get $204, and so on. So what we want to do is we want to go a step above that. We want to keep that, but now we want to create special pricing. We want to do it a little bit further. So again, we can do that for a specific customer, to a specific item, very detailed or very broad. We can just say all customers that are in a certain customer class, let's say all retail customers, we want to charge them more. All retail customers, we're going to take this price of $228 and we're going to multiply it by 1.1. So we're going to increase it by 10%. Or we're going to say all customers that are wholesalers, we want to give them an additional price off. So this is where it starts from this information here, which is part of your setup when you do facts. And then from there, we can then go in and we can get specific. So we can now go into that and we can see again. So we can see here, we can do it in a couple ways. We have an effective date and an expiration date, so we can start it today, and we can in this case, we have no expiration date, so this is going to go on forever. We can actually set this for the future, so we can put an effective date of, say, next month or the beginning of the next month, and we can run it for 30 or 60 days. This is nice because a lot of times in negotiations with customers, we may give them a special price for the next 6 months. We can do it that way, or we can just set it up for a big sale coming up so we can get it done ahead of time. We have two options here. We have the price levels. We can do it based on the price levels you saw or the quantity breaks, so we can set those two up. We can use a rounding. If we wish, we can round to the nearest tenth or the nearest dollar, just so we keep everything clean since we're using a lot of percentages. We can go in here and we can say all customers, all items. Again, so in this case, if we do it this way, all customers and all items are going to get this. Typically, this is not the case because that's what the standard price levels and quantity breaks are usually used for. So we easily turn that off. We have a warehouse. Again, the ship tos, we can select specific warehouse ship tos. We can specify if we're doing a direct ship or a drop ship. We want to select those. We can exclude items. We have stock items, non-stock, non-inventory. Sometimes this is used a lot. A lot of clients, what they do is they exclude all this, and they just use the catalog, maybe their interface with a website. They want to encourage people to buy from the catalog, so we can do it that way. Again, we can choose something on there. So again, here we're looking at our levels. So we can then select the level. We can either highlight and select the edit or just double click on the line. Again, standard facts. So we can choose our basis. We want to just do it off the list price. So in this case, we say list price, 0.95. Whatever the list price is or that level is going to be taken for level 1. It's going to look at the list price and take it off. We want to do it against itself. We can just do it this way. So whatever the level is, this person's going to get an additional 5% off. We can also do a fixed price if we wanted to and enter the price here like we saw in our first example. And we could do it this way. At this point, we can select, since we did not select all customers and items, we can do it here. So we can still say all customers if we want. Or here, we're going to do a customer class. So we saw here we took the retail customers. And when it comes to items, we can do, in this case, the retail customers, all items they get. Or, again, we can do it by a vendor. Or we can do a class and so on. We have these options to set up. Let's do Docker equipment. done, and so on. You notice that it's not approved. We can leave it done without being approved. So here it's saying we need to select one warehouse. The reason why we're getting this is because of this, so it's not going to let us get out until we do that. We're just going to go ahead to shipping. Okay, we're going to select our warehouse. Let's say we're just going to do this for the Atlanta warehouse. That's there. And click done. And again, we did it for a direct ship vendor, so we have to do the same thing. We don't have it there. Let's just go ahead and take that off. So again, we see that's done. If we search, we can see that we have it here. And we can see that there is no approval. So this is not going to be active until we approve it. We see up here that it's not approved. It's just a matter of going into approval. It's going to note the user. In this case, I'm logged in as Infor, and the date. So now it's available. We have our list, as we discussed. We can get very detailed on the list of what we want to see. Again, we have all the information here, okay, where it originated from, if it came from quotes, all this information. I'm just going to run it for everything right now. So you can see here, gives you a detail of all our contracts. We can go here once contracts are expired. We saw here in our contracts, like for example, these expire here. So what we can do is we can, if we want to just get rid of those, we can go into expired contract removal, and we have the option of removing them here. And we have some options. We can remove all expired contracts for all items, primary vendors, and again, the information you had before, so we can do it this way. We just removed all the expired contracts, so now we go in and look. You can see here that all the expired contracts are gone, so all these are left. So we just cleaned it up, make it a lot easier for us. We don't have to see all that information. Okay, so that concludes today's webinar for Infor FACTS. We talked about contract pricing. This webinar is being recorded. It's going to be available on our website. You can visit us at www.michellgroup.com to view this as well as other webinars we have for Infor FACTS, different features and functionality. Once again, we thank you very much for your time.